My name is Jackie Tomeyer, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's forum, and it is my pleasure to welcome all of you here this evening. The Lloydminster Chamber of Commerce, along with chambers across Canada, is a nonpartisan organization committed to supporting our members and our community. We carry out our mission by leading a growing, innovative, and dynamic business environment, advocating for and promoting the interest of our members and the community. One way we fulfill this responsibility is by regularly hosting forums for candidates in municipal, provincial, and federal elections. All candidates running in Battleford's Lloydminster riding and the Lakeland riding have been invited to attend and participate in this forum. Up first this evening will be the Battleford's Lloydminster Meadow Lake riding, followed by the Lakeland riding forum at 7:30. I am pleased to welcome the candidates joining us this evening. Thank you for making time to engage with your community in this important democratic process. And we are privileged to live in a country where we have the right and opportunity to vote our leaders. I'd also like to thank the Lloydminster Exhibition and staff for hosting tonight, as their support has made this event possible. Up here with me tonight doing the question collation are Chamber's Political Action Committee members, Blaine Steffen and Ryan Topley. And our timer is Terry Lynn Mackey. And collecting questions from the floor is Courtney Schmeiser. And thank you to everyone joining us in person and via the live stream on the Chamber's website and social media. A special thanks to Maz Entertainment for providing the live stream. For viewers to submit questions, please email all questions to forum@lloydminsterchamber.com. forum@lloydminsterchamber.com. Okay, forum guidelines. I now declare the forum officially called to order. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and comment on some of the important areas of their platform. The order of speaking has been determined by a computer randomizer. The timekeeper will keep track of the stopwatch and will sound the bell when time is up. We ask each candidate to adhere to the time limits in order to give everyone an equal opportunity to speak. We will address as many questions as possible that come to us via email, and we ask that your questions be specific and addressed to a particular candidate. We will not read long preambles to a question, so in order to have questions addressed, they must be concise and to the point. The moderator will rule out of order any questions deemed inappropriate, offensive, derogatory, or that seem to attack the integrity of any candidate. And the moderator will rule and communicate the length of time to respond to questions. The response time for questions will be based on the moderator's discretion. 1-minute responses, 30-second responses, and yes and no responses. Candidates will be given 2 minutes for a wrap-up, and the order of speakers will be the reverse of the introductions. As moderator, I will have final jurisdictions on all forum matters. So it is now 5:32, and we will begin with candidate introductions. These were chosen by a randomizer. So first up is Daryl Patan. Patton.
Hello, my name is Daryl Patton, and I am the candidate for the Canadian Future Party. If you do not know us, do not fret. We only became a full-fledged party in the summer of 2024. The party was formed because a majority of Canadians, almost 70%, consider themselves moderates. And yet there are 3 main parties who have moved to the extremes on both the right and the left, and even the far left. Our party is here to bring Canadian politics back to the center, where we feel it belongs. We are socially progressive and fiscally responsible and are committed to evidence-based decisions. We also believe in telling the truth even when it is hard. We stand for the equality of all people and their right to live free without discrimination. Government has no place in the private lives of citizens, but in public life, we must all, as citizens, do more to uphold the democratic norms and to confront injustice. Personally, I am a lifelong resident of Lloydminster, and I am very passionate about my family's roots in the Saskatchewan and Alberta regions. I am extremely proud to call myself a Canadian, and I also have the great respect for the First Nations peoples from coast to coast to coast. especially locally with both the Indigenous and the Métis. We all have a great opportunity to come together to command a bigger and better Canada. I represent the core of what Canada is, the hardworking, tax-paying, blue-collar worker who deserves representation too. If I am so honored with a victory, I commit to keep our government fair and honest, the same traits my father taught me in all of his years of municipal government. I look forward to sharing with you how the Canadian Future Party is ready to protect our country's independence, to strengthen our society and public institutions, to make democracy deliver for Canadians, and to support our country's growth in an increasingly unstable world.
Okay, next up we have Larry Ingram.
Good evening, friends, neighbors, and fellow residents of this great riding. I sit before you tonight, not as a politician, but as someone who has lived and worked alongside you my entire life. I was born and raised here. I felt both the pride of our deep roots and the cumbersome challenges we face. We are a region of farmers, workers, small business owners, and strong families. But we're also a region that's been caught in the middle of something far beyond our borders, a trade war we didn't ask for, but one we're being forced to pay for. Tariffs and trade tensions with our closest neighbor, the United States, Donald Trump's threat of annexation and Canadian sovereignty, they're hammering our producers, our exporters, and way of life. When canola can't cross the border, when steel is penalized, when farmers can't sell their harvest, we all feel it. I promise you, I will fight every single day to protect your livelihoods and your families from the fallout of political decisions that affect everyone. But protecting our economy also means recognizing where our strengths truly lie, in each other. This riding is home to some of the most vibrant, resilient, and prosperous communities in Canada. The First Nations, I want to be clear, reconciliation cannot be just a word we use during campaigns. It has to mean action. It has to mean respect, investment, and partnership. We won't build that future by pretending everything's fine. We'll build it by listening, really listening, and by doing the hard work together. This just isn't politics for me. This is personal. This is home. And I'm running because I know we can do better, because I believe we must do better. So I ask for your trust, your support, and your vote, not just to represent you in Ottawa, but to be your voice in Ottawa. Let's build it together. Thank you.
All right, next up, William Petrell.
Good evening. I'm William Petrick, and I'm a recently retired CPA with over 30 years of accounting experience across Canada. Most of my career is spent as a senior level, as a controller or finance manager. I worked in forestry, manufacturing, and tech industries. This riding has been home to me since 2011. I have always had an interest in politics. My first experience involved serving as a student rep at York University. Over the years, I've seen many changes: computerization, the long overdue acceptance of women in leadership roles, reliance on the internet for information, and the realization that environmental concerns are vital to business. These developments all challenge old beliefs and shifted attitudes. Once again, we face a change, a ruthless challenge from a nation we once trusted as an ally. We must stand firm in our values, build a resilient society that protects against the threats and ensures prosperity for all of us. Both the Liberals and Conservatives are offering tax cuts in favor of the wealthy, with the biggest breaks going to those earning over $250,000. The NDP has a better plan, one that puts workers and families first. We propose to cut taxes for workers and families by raising the basic personal amount to $19,500, putting $505 back in the pockets of the working class, to increase the top marginal tax rate on incomes over $216,000 from 33% to 35%, to introduce a 1% wealth tax on fortunes over $10 million, to remove the GST from essentials like diapers, kids' clothes, cell phone, internet, and heating bills, to increase the guaranteed income supplement for seniors and double the Canada Disability benefit. Families are struggling to meet ends meet, and with Trump threatening even more tariffs, the situation is becoming increasingly urgent.
Okay, we're going to dive into some questions. This first one will start at the end again. We'll start with Daryl, and you will have 1 minute to respond, and we'll do Daryl, Larry, and William. Small and medium-sized businesses are struggling with rising costs due to inflation, supply chain disruptions, and interest rates. What measures will you take to stabilize costs and support business sustainability?
You caught me with a tough one right off the start. I would have to say that our party is more concerned about making sure small business is protected in more aspects than just, words. The CFP will break down the trade barriers between provinces and territories so that both small business and the agricultural sector, as well as other larger Canadian businesses, can freely trade and move across the country. These interprovincial trade barriers are currently leaving at least 2% of the GDP on the table. And that is sadly all I have. I apologize.
Okay, Larry? Yep. Small and medium-sized businesses are struggling with rising costs due to inflation, supply chain disruptions, and interest rates. What measures will you take to stabilize costs and support business sustainability?
Well, the one thing that I found when I was in small business was the apprenticeship. My apprenticeship went on for 4 years. I found that other people went to Alberta and they were having to pay their apprenticeship, and I thought that was a little bit harsh. But we're working with unions, businesses, and industries to support workers impacted by the tariffs. Introducing a new $15,000 benefit for workers to upskill and train in the middle of their careers in priority industries, and covering training costs for new apprentices up to $8,000. And I think that that's very good for the small businesses, because most times when you see a ad saying we're looking for helpers, a lot of the times that's the construction workers, and those are the ones we really need to be training a lot on.
Okay, thank you. I'll just remind the candidates to hold the mic close for our online viewers. And if you have questions to submit, it's forum@lloydminsterchamber.com. Do you need me to repeat the question, William?
Oh, yes, okay. Well, we believe in, first of all, skills training. The NDP has always supported skills training because this is something small. Well, any business relies on this. Okay, and in addition, there's also grants and tax incentives to small manufacturing industries. And additionally, there's infrastructure. We have anyone just drives on some of our gravel roads, this does cause wear and tear on vehicles and makes difficulty getting to and from your place of employment. So infrastructure is very important to us.
Okay, this will be a 30-second answer, and we'll start with Larry. How will you ensure hydrogen and critical mineral resources can be developed within provinces without federal interference?
Honestly, I can say that I can't guarantee that, because the country is moderated a lot by the federal government, and you can't just go willy-nilly and throw hydrogen in the air without having any plan, and any plan with the rest of the provinces and the federal government.
Okay, William, how will you ensure hydrogen and critical mineral resources can be developed within provinces without federal interference?
Oh, mineral resources. I think we're talking about the oil and gas industry. Unfortunately, we do need some federal interference because the NDP has always been in favor of a coast-to-coast pipeline to take oil and gas to markets right across Canada. This will be one way, and that'll be the basic way, yes.
Daryl?
Well, I would say that our party is along the same lines as the other two. Sadly, we cannot guarantee that there would not be any federal input into resources being used. I do know that we as a party would work with the provinces to take advantage of our natural resources in minerals and ores and make it so that there is a place for Canada on the world.
Okay. This next one will be a 1 minute answer, and we will start with William. Federal debt is at record levels, and rising interest payments could lead to higher taxes or reduced services. What is your concrete plan to reduce the national debt while avoiding further tax burden on businesses?
Well, actually, the NDP has always been in favor of transparency and spending. Well, we do spend on investment, and I think part of the past we haven't spent enough on investment, and properly monitoring spending, make sure it's and transparency.
Okay, Daryl?
Well, in my opening statement, I said we're the party that's going to tell the truth to the hard answers. And Canada is not in a position to start offering fancy tax breaks and other things to the voter to get their vote. We're under a threat from many places in this world, namely 4 nations, and I won't name them here because I'm sure we all know who they are. We need to have responsible deficits that are transparent to the taxpayer because we need increases in military spending. We need to make sure that our borders are secure and safe. So our party says that we will continue to make sure that Canadians are taken care of, but at the same time, we have to expect that the expenditures will be larger than what we take in.
Okay, Larry?
Could you read that question again?
Yep. Where was it? Can you see it? Sorry, Larry. Oh yeah, federal debt is at record levels and rising interest payments could lead to higher taxes or reduced services. What is your concrete plan to reduce the national debt while avoiding further tax burdens on businesses?
My the party would be working to decrease the debt by getting everybody working, or maybe not everybody, but increase the workforce again so that most people are employed and working. That's the fastest way to reduce the debt federally, is to get the people working, get our product to market, because as we get our product to market, we pay off our debts, and people pay taxes and the debt gets paid down, but we also have more sales across the country.
Okay, perfect. Okay, we're going to start with William for this next question. It will be 30-second answer. What are you going to do to help eliminate large tariffs on our agriculture sector, and how urgently will you act?
Well, obviously the answer is very urgently. As for large tariffs on agricultural goods, we have to, well, because our main trading partner is actually now unreliable, we have to find new markets, and and we have to make markets or make trade agreements with people that respect their agreements, that do not bow out of them to make a point. And it'll be a lot of work, but it has to be done. And this is something that we kind of passed up. Oh, that's a bill.
Yeah. Next we'll go to Larry.
Thanks, William. what William was talking about is exactly what Prime Minister Carney did. As soon as the tariffs were put on, he went to outside of the Canada-US area and tried looking for more markets for our grain and our products to be shipped to, and signing agreements with other countries besides the United States. So I think that that's basically what we're going to have to do.
Okay, Daryl?
Well, other than talking about the 2% that we would gain through interprovincial trade, the CFP would also introduce tax and policy incentives to help Canadian businesses diversify their exports beyond the increasingly protectionist U.S. market. Canada must promote trade with our European allies and encourage the expansion of CANZUC and also the EU, and include democratic states of all continents.
Okay. Next up will be another 30-second answer. We'll start with Larry. With Canada's aging population, attracting and retaining talent is critical. How will your government ensure Canada remains an attractive destination for skilled workers and entrepreneurs?
Like I've said already a couple times, that we've got to put money into getting people skilled, paying for their tuition, paying for their training, and making sure that people are coming to Canada that want to be working, and as far as small business will come along, because once you've got some skilled workers working with you, you can make more projects and you can get more things done.
Okay, Daryl?
One of the different things that our party has in our platform is a civic or civil program where young people can get into the trades and be paid for it by the government, and it's a 2-year time limit, and then that way they're not only helping infrastructure in housing and other trades, but they can then decide that if they want to follow a trade, they can do it because they have the experience.
Okay, William?
Well, actually, that question reminds me of a time in Toronto I ran into a lady who was an accountant. She was actually working in a pizza restaurant because her credentials weren't recognized. And there was another time in Alberta, I was a doctor that was waiting to be recognized by the Alberta College's physicians. So we couldn't get it working. We have to respect foreign credentials and have and be able to make sure people qualify to work here.
Okay, we're going to start with Daryl, and this will be 1 minute. Okay. The carbon tax has significantly increased costs for businesses, especially energy-intensive sectors. Will you eliminate the federal carbon pricing framework to ensure businesses remain competitive or redesign it?
And that one is pretty simple to start off. If we would have a mandate, we would repeal the carbon tax as it was made by Justin Trudeau. However, we would sit with industry and come up with an industrial carbon tax. The bigger users are the ones that are causing the biggest problems. So they're the ones that we need to come up with a plan. When it comes to natural resources, we also want to have a plan where there's an energy fund that goes towards greener technologies, and it's a portion of what is taken out of the ground and made as a profit. So we have different and more, different ways of looking at ways to make the carbon tax work in a different way. Nobody likes the word carbon tax.
We will go to William.
You're right. No one likes carbon tax. Maybe you should call it carbon initiative. Actually, I've always been, although all three parties, major parties, have looked at ways to just tax the main polluters. I've often always been against opaque taxes or hidden taxes that you're not aware of, and this is happening to the carbon initiative nowadays. I believe that we should carbon taxes should be transparent. So when you're going to a gas station, whatever, you know exactly what a carbon tax is. And there should be initiatives to reduce carbon tax, for example, better insulation for homes, better transportation infrastructure can all reduce our carbon footprint.
Okay, Larry?
So your question has kind of got me confused because it says right here it eliminated the CARB, as Prime Minister Mark Carney has already delivered by eliminating the consumer carbon tax, which has already relieved pressure on Canadians at the pump and cooled inflation down to 2.3% in March. So the carbon, as people refer to it as the carbon tax, has already been dropped. That was an incentive to get companies and people to quit using carbon, fossil fuels as much as they were. And I would think that most people in the room have probably felt that they backed off on the amount of fuel they were using over the past few years and have switched to electric here and there. Maybe not totally, but most of us have done something like that. Like with myself, I bought an electric lawnmower and an electric snowblower. And so I didn't have to worry about starting the gas motors again. So it's been in a lot of people's minds. You see a fair amount of solar panels here and there.
Okay, just to clarify, these are not the Chamber's questions or my own questions. These are questions from our constituents. Next up, we will start with William, and this will be a 30-second answer. Businesses have expressed concerns over the federal government's lack of meaningful consultation on policies that impact them. How will you ensure the business community has stronger voice in federal decision making?
Actually, the NDP has always been in favor of consultation and transparency. So more consultation with all stakeholders, which is business, government, and consumers, on just about anything that affects them.
Okay, we'll go to Larry.
Well, that question would be nice if the member of parliament that represents us was here. The point being is that that's what a member of parliament is supposed to do, is to be attached to the constituency, made possible so that when people and companies and people have issues, that they can actually get a hold of the member of parliament, the representative that is getting paid to be the representative.
Okay, Daryl.
Our party has a very different approach. We want to change the way that the House of Commons works. Our party will give the MPs the power to vote as their constituents want. Right now, there is backbenchers that have no choice but to vote the way their leader tells them to. Our party will gladly let you all know that I will vote on the way my constituents want me to, other than anything, of course, promised in a campaign as a platform. But when it comes to
Okay, our next question, Larry, we'll start with you, and you'll have 1 minute. Everyone will have 1 minute. Canada has fallen behind in economic growth compared to peer nations. What specific policies will you implement to improve Canada's tax competitiveness, reduce red tape, and drive investment?
Well, first off, I would question if the very first line is the truth or not. I don't think that Canada has fallen behind the world. When I brought up the best country to be living in, Canada came in just slightly behind Sweden to be the best country in the world to live in. So when people have put out that we're poor and that we're broken and that we cannot survive, I don't see that at all. I see where we have become a leader, and we're going to work hard at being a leader in the G7, being one of the most affluent countries. And I just keep on thinking that we'll get it. People will be making a lot of income because we're going to make that happen.
Hey, Daryl.
I'm going to be honest. In my former work, I don't really get the question, so I'm just going to answer what I think would be important is taxes. We want to reform the tax code of Canada. Nobody has attempted to change the tax code in our country since the 60s. We want to make it easier for the common person to know why they're paying their taxes and where it's going. We want to establish a royal commission to reform and simplify the system. The commission's work would be guided by the principles of progressive taxation, tax fairness and integrity, competitiveness, and simplicity and transparency. All the provinces and territories, of course, would be invited to voluntary consultation and participation.
Okay, thank you. William?
My information is that reading Stats Canada, Canada has not fallen that far behind. We're doing, as compared vis-a-vis the other G7 nations, we're doing quite well. However, we can do better. We have to keep one thing about economic growth. It's something that has to keep moving forward. And so we need to, one way to definitely increase economic growth is interprovincial trade barriers. I can't believe that we can't sell, well, one time we couldn't even sell beer in another province. That's been dropping, and interprovincial trade has to improve. And there should be more development. NDP particularly wants to build more infrastructure, especially into affordable housing. And in terms of the nation, we need more investment in manufacturing and to diversify the economy. One area we're falling behind in is robotics. And so there has to be more investment in. Yeah.
Okay, just want to remind for viewers to submit questions, please email all questions to forum@lloydminsterchamber.com. We will take them. Our wonderful collators will take them and process them. Okay, we are going to start. Daryl will start down at the end there, and we'll do a 30-second answer. How will you ensure federal infrastructure spending is equitably distributed and targeted to support trade and economic growth?
These people have some pretty high educations on me here. I am stumped on that one. In my preparations, I do not have anything to answer that question directly, so I would suggest that you go to our website and look at our platform, and hopefully that will answer your question, because I think honesty is the best way to go, and if I can't answer a question, I'm not going to fib my way through.
Okay, we'll go to Larry.
Good answer, Daryl. The economics and the provinces and the federal government and where money's going to be invested so that it does the best for the people of that area, I think has to come from the direction of the member of parliament for the area that the money is going to. And then that way people will be able to connect with that member of parliament. The member of parliament can be in understanding of what's going to happen and be in charge of the contract. And so that people in all the aspects of it are all on the same page and can communicate with each other.
Okay, perfect. William.
Well, my answer to that would be define equitable, because what's equitable to one person is definitely a disadvantage to another person, and this goes with provinces. I believe that Canada should spend its money where it's most needed, and it'll be a shame for the federal government not to invest in certain areas of the country just to equalize everything. If a certain development benefits all Canadians, then it should be made.
Okay. Larry, we'll start with you. Actually, yeah. Well, this one's just for you. Just for you, and you can have 30 seconds to answer it. What is the Liberal government doing to get China to eliminate the current 100% tariff on canola, canola meal, field peas, and lesser tariffs on pork, fish, and seafood products?
My understanding is that the federal government is in communications and negotiations with China, and as time goes on, they will be carrying on those communications. I presume that there's a certain amount that has to do with the tariffs that are coming from the United States, the tariffs that are coming from outside of our jurisdiction, and playing on that. So we'll leave it up to the government that's elected to work with that.
Okay, perfect. William, we will start with you for the next one. Businesses rely on efficient transportation and trade corridors to access domestic and global markets. What is your plan to invest in and improve trade infrastructure, including rail, highways, pipelines, and ports?
Well, yes to all of them, actually. We do need, I lived in a time when there were ships lined up outside of Vancouver because it couldn't unload or take our grain away. We definitely need ports, well, all of them, as well as internet and communications. So yes, there should be incentives to build, and as well as a plan to maintain our good road. Well, if I was living in northern Saskatchewan, I wouldn't consider our roadways to be great, but they have to be expanded.
Okay, Larry, we'll go to you. 1 minute, yeah.
So the infrastructure that we've been left with and working with right now in our part of Saskatchewan, in the constituency I live in, now that it's so large, it has had 2 rail lines taken out of it during the time that Conservatives were in power. And so from just north of North Battleford to St. Walburg, the rail line was taken out. The other rail line that was taken out was through Rabbit Lake up to Meadow Lake. This has both been very hard on our roadways. The highways are just getting beat to heck with how much traffic's going on. As of late, I wondered, because the Port of Churchill is opening now more than 10 months of the year, I've been wondering if we couldn't put a rail line across from the Fort McMurray area to Churchill.
Okay, Daryl?
So we have a plan for a cross-Canada federal governmentally owned corridor where there will be east-to-west pipelines, there will be power, there will be access for telecommunications, as well as new rail, new roads, so that products can be delivered quicker or more quickly from province to province, and eliminating some of the pressures that are on our highways and our roads. And we would hope that the provinces would agree that a high-end corridor from coast to coast would make things easier for us to get to where it needs to get to.
And this is going to be done with which money?
I never realized that there was some rebuttal here. Remember I said responsible deficits?
Candidates are allowed to rebut. So if you do want to have a rebuttal, Larry, you sure can.
No, I'm fine.
I'm a rookie here, don't forget.
Okay. Next question will be a 30-second answer, and we'll start with William. Businesses continue to face severe skilled labor shortages across multiple industries. How will your government reform immigration, credential recognition, and training policies to better align with workforce needs?
Actually, I think we probably answered these questions already. The NDP has always been in favor of skills training, and this will require consultation with all stakeholders. So businesses would of course, and of course, we recognize their changes. We also would like to build infrastructure, for example, in solar and wind power, and this will definitely require more skills training. So skills, yumps. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll go to Daryl.
We need to understand as Canadians that immigration is vital to our country. We are an aging population and a low birth rate. So responsible immigration is important. One of the big things that we want is to make the tradesperson pilot program a permanent program and increase the skilled trades to 30% instead of the current 0%. This way we will be hiring tradespeople from outside the country. We also want to take advantage and make a special visa for the brain drain.
Larry?
Introducing a new $15,000 benefits for workers to upskill and train in the middle of their careers in priority industries. Covering training costs for new apprentices up to $8,000. Right now, we have every province has its own training, its own apprenticeship. My interprovincial certificate wasn't recognized in Quebec, and I don't think it still would be. We have different people having to have different trainings all over the place.
Okay, thank you very much. Just a note, if you have questions, please get them back to Courtney. And if you have online questions, please submit them to forum@lloydminsterchamber.com, and we will get them into the queue. Okay, we will start at the end of the table. Daryl, we'll start with you for 1 minute question. Many foreign investors cite Canada's slow and uncertain project approval process as a deterrent. How will you reform federal permitting and approval processes to accelerate responsible resource and infrastructure development?
I'm a carpenter. So I don't know if Rosemarie is the one that's making these questions or not, because boy, oh boy, they are not in my debate handbook. I'm again going to be honest with you guys. I did as much prep as I possibly could. That is a question that is outside my scope, and I apologize again. I'm trying, and some of the questions are just outside of what I have been able to learn in this short time.
Okay, thank you. William?
Actually, Canadian approval processes aren't all that much slower than other nations. Whether extraction industries or even building a factory, the approval process is actually quite quick. For extraction industries, one must get environmental and environmental buy-in. So this naturally takes a while. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Larry?
Could you repeat?
I sure can.
Could you repeat the question?
Many foreign investors cite Canada's slow and uncertain project approval process as a deterrent. How will you reform federal permitting and approval processes to accelerate responsible resource and infrastructure development?
Well, first off, I don't think that the foreign investment issue is something that I'm really that concerned about. I find that often enough the foreign investment is what's messing with our economy to begin with. Right now, I understand that a lot of the land in Saskatchewan is owned by foreign investments. I look at the oil industry, and a whole bunch of that land and oil is owned by foreign investments. I see where if the foreign investment has a problem with coming and investing in Canada, and they think we've got too many hoops for them to jump through, well, maybe they should go jump through the hoops in some other country and not try to own us.
Okay. Everyone answered that one, right? Yep. Yes. Okay, the next one will be a yes or no. Daryl, you're okay. It's a yes or no. The current labor market impact assessment process is slow, inconsistent, and lacks an appeal mechanism, creating unnecessary barriers for businesses facing critical labor shortages. Will you commit to reforming the LMIA process for people to find work here?
I do believe that is a yes.
Larry?
Maybe.
William?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next one will be a 1 minute, and we'll start with you, Larry. The federal government has introduced increasing regulations on banking, energy, and agriculture that impact business viability. What specific regulations will you prioritize to cut or amend to improve business confidence?
I think that the business confidence comes from having good working class and good relationships in the business industry. And I don't think that the federal government's regulations are that impeding to the business. I find that the provincial governments are more impeding to the business, and that's when I was in business, I found that the Saskatchewan government was more impeding with that than I was finding at the federal government, such as having to get a school bus driver's license every 2 years instead of leaving it run for the years that the Class 1A driver's license runs for. Having to go get harness training every 2 years because somebody dreamt it up that, hey, this is a good way to keep somebody working or some service working. I think that the aerial work platform every couple of years getting that training again is always out to lunch.
Okay, we'll go to William.
It was a banking. What are the other two?
The federal government has introduced increasing regulations on banking, energy, and agriculture that impact business viability. What specific regulations will you prioritize to cut or amend to improve business confidence?
Well, actually, regulation for the agricultural sector, the federal government has always supported the agricultural sector, by setting quality standards, and these have to be maintained. As for banking, bank regulation, actually, we have some of the bank regulations that are actually quite and not that onerous here in Canada. We do have our branch banking system that's could be the envy to other countries. And was that the other transportation?
It was agriculture, banking, and energy.
Oh, energy, yes. And even in energy, well, we're actually quite open to development on that sector.
Okay, Daryl?
Our platform, we do believe that the banking part of that is something that needs to be gone over with all the parties that are involved in developing the way banking fees are structured. And again, sometimes things get too overcomplicated, and that goes with energy as well. We need to sit down and reform some of these systems that are in place. And instead of making decisions in Ottawa, let's confer and make agreements with the people that it affects.
Okay, everyone answered that? Yep. Okay, next up, we will start with Larry. The recent amendments to the Competition Act targeting greenwashing add to a growing trend of federal policies prioritizing environmental regulation over economic growth. How will you ensure that economic competitiveness, job creation, and business investment stay top of mind?
Wow. Greenwashing. That's the first time I heard that line. So where are we going with this one? I'm just going to pass on it.
Okay, Daryl?
I'm hard passed. I mean, there's questions. I have done my work. I have 10 pages of well-prepared stuff. Greenwashing? I pass.
Okay, William?
Greenwashing, that's sort of like money laundering. Okay, yes, and if it is money laundering, well, actually, we do have banking regulations for that. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll try another one. Larry, do you want to try again? We'll lead off. Okay. 1 minute answer. Canada's energy sector faces mounting regulatory barriers, including the Impact Assessment Act, Bill C-69, and clean electricity regulations. Will you commit to repealing or reforming these policies to support Canada's energy industry?
Yes, I would review that policy. I would think that our Canada energy policy would look at being reviewed every few years because it's a very changing atmosphere out there right now. Right now, certain people think that the only energy we got is coming from fossil fuels. Next person thinks the only energy we got is coming from electricity, and the third person saying, hey, we're developing uranium. So those are three that are on the board right now, and who is to know what is our next energy coming from as we find more developments in our natural minerals. So I think that every 5 years that kind of a program should be looked at.
Okay, William?
Well, as you, excuse me, our party is very strong on environmental issues. So, and so we can't. We can't dismiss that.
Okay. Are you good? Okay. Daryl, do you want me to read the question again? Canada's energy sector faces mounting regulatory barriers, including the Impact Assessment Act, Bill C-69, and clean electricity regulations. Will you commit to repealing or reforming these policies to support Canada's energy industry?
I would have to agree with Larry on this one. Bill C-69 does need to be reviewed. Again, the oil and gas industry is always changing. Policy is always changing. But we would also like to concentrate on looking at new forms of energy as well. Canada must embrace nuclear power and follow along the lines of Saskatchewan with new, smaller, modular nuclear power plants. So that would help to enable with the green energy portion of that. But other than that, I would say that we need to rely on fossil fuels until we can find other alternatives. I mean, it's a sad reality, but we have to try and embrace both at the same time.
Okay, we are a little ahead of schedule, but I think that we have heard what we need to hear tonight, and I think I'm going to give these gentlemen 2 minutes to wrap up and say what they need to say. So we will start in reverse order of how we opened. So we will be starting with William.
I think my voice has come back. Okay. So anyway, my first thing is to thank everyone for coming out this evening and participating in this forum. And I want to leave with this message: the New Democrats fight for ordinary people, and we deliver. One thing we haven't touched upon is over 1.7 million Canadians have already received free dental care, many for the first time. Canadians now have access to free diabetes medication and devices, as well as free reproductive health care. The provinces are now on board with $10 a day daycare, and free school lunches are becoming a reality. All this was achieved as part of a supply and confidence agreement. Now, more needs to be done in addressing the rising cost of living. We're fighting to create affordable housing for people, not wealthy investors. We're standing up to corporate greed and that's inflating grocery prices. And we're pushing for a farmer care system to ensure all Canadians have access to medication they require. In response to tariffs imposed by Trump, the NDP is committing to building a stronger, more resilient economy that puts working people first. Remove barriers to employment insurance, boost investment in infrastructure, projects like roads, bridges, health facilities, and ports. And we'll work with government, business, and labor to create a national strategy for strengthening economic manufacturing and resource processing. Canadians believe in taking care of each other. Now more than ever, we need new Democrats in order to fight for working people. No one not want to put billionaires first. I'll ask for your support on Election Day. Thank you.
Next up, we'll hear from Larry.
In closing, tackling affordability and building Canada strong. Canadians are doing everything right. They're working hard, secured a good job, and saved for the future. But often, it's not enough. A Mark Carney-led Liberal government will focus on helping hard-working Canadians keep more of their paychecks, tackle affordability, and invest in what matters most to Canadians: healthcare, childcare, and housing. As Prime Minister, Mark Carney has already delivered by eliminating the consumer carbon tax, which we already mentioned, cutting the GST for first-time home buyers for houses under $1 million to help Canadians who are entering the housing market, expanding our national dental care plan to cover all Canadians by May 2025. These are great initiatives, and there's still more to be done. Mark Carney and the Liberal team are ready to step up for workers, for families, and for seniors to build the fastest growing economy in the G7. A Mark Carney-led government would implement a tax cut for the middle class, which will save two-income families $825 a year and benefit more than 22 million Canadians. Build 500,000 homes a year so every Canadian can buy a home they can afford. Work with unions, businesses, and industry to support workers impacted by tariffs. Introducing a new $15,000 benefit for workers to upskill and train in the middle of their careers in priority industries. Covering training costs for new apprentices up to $6,000. Strengthen a $10 a day childcare, which is already saving families in Saskatchewan up to $7,000 in Saskatchewan a year child. Mark Carney and the federal Liberals will build Canada strong. Thank you.
All right, Daryl.
Well, I'm going to ad-lib here a little bit to start. A snap election makes it difficult for some parties to be able to compete. Our party is only 8 months old. I never got the training that I should have, and for that, I am a little bit flat-footed here tonight. But I am still brave enough to sit up here and look you guys in the face and into that camera to say that the Canadian Future Party is offering the only fiscally responsible and socially progressive option in Canadian politics. We focus on the policies that are backed by evidence, and I am glad to have had the opportunity, if not the best one, to share some of those with you today. We know what is important: democracy first and always. Public services that deliver tangible benefits and a thriving private sector, and protections for the private lives of all Canadians, coupled with the high expectations for those in public service. Sorry. As a lifelong resident of a hardworking blue collar myself, you have my commitment to uphold the values that should come that we should come to expect from our government. I am personally appalled that there is a candidate in this riding who is asking for your vote on the 28th, but could not even show up here today. Yet I could. That is not acceptable, and I expect more from my MP, the one that I have voted for twice. If you feel that the major parties no longer accurately represent you, a vote for me would just demonstrate that Canadians want and need a centrist alternative. In the advance polls or on April 28th, vote for me and the Canadian Future Party, and please, I just want you to be advised that because of an error, I will be listed as CFP on the ballot. Finally, be sure to check out our full platform at our website at thecanadianfutureparty.ca. Thank you for letting me do this, and I made it.
Thank you. That wraps up our candidates forum for Battleford's Lloydminster Meadow Lake riding. Be sure to get out on April 28th and vote. It is your right. It is your privilege and your responsibility to your country. We will now take a short break to reset and be up next, the Lakeland riding candidates, to get seated. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, I finally did that.
Thank you for joining us. Is everyone where they want to be seated? Perfect. Welcome back, everyone. We will go through our opening remarks once again, as we will have new audience joining us from the Lakeland riding. The Lloydminster Chamber of Commerce, along with chambers across Canada, is a nonpartisan organization committed to supporting our members and our community. We carry out our mission by leading growing, innovative, and dynamic business environment, advocating for and promoting the interest of our members and the community. One way we fulfill this responsibility is by regularly hosting forums for candidates in municipal, provincial, and federal elections. All candidates running in the Lakeland region, in the Battlefords, Lloydminster, Meadow Lake riding, and the Lakeland riding have been invited to attend and participate in the forum. Up this evening will be the Lakeland. Up the furthest this evening we heard from the Battlefords, Lloydminster, Meadow Lake riding, and now we will hear from the Lakeland riding. I am pleased to welcome candidates joining us this evening. Thank you for making time to engage with our community in this important democratic process, and we are privileged to live in a country where we have the right and opportunity to vote for our leaders. And I would also like to thank the Lloydminster Exhibition and staff for hosting us tonight, as their support has made this event possible. Up here tonight, doing the question collation, our Chamber's Political Action Committee, Blaine Steffen and Ryan Topley. And our timer is Terry Lynn Mackey. Collecting questions from the floor is Courtney Schmeiser. So if you have questions, Courtney can help you out. Thank you to everyone joining us in person and via live stream on the Chamber's website and social media. A special thanks to Maz Entertainment for providing the live stream. For viewers to submit your questions, please email to forum@lloydminsterchamber.com. That's forum@lloydminsterchamber.com. All right. I now declare the forum officially called to order. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and comment on some of the important areas of their platform. The order of speaking has been determined by a computer randomizer. The timekeeper will keep track of the stopwatch and will sound the bell when the time is up. We ask each candidate to adhere to the time limits in order to give everyone an equal opportunity to speak. We will address as many questions as possible that come to us via email. We ask that your questions be specific and addressed to a particular candidate. We will not read a long preamble to a question, so in order to have questions answered, they must be concise and to the point. The moderator will rule out of order any questions deemed inappropriate, offensive, derogatory, or that seem to attack the integrity of any candidate. The moderator will rule and communicate the length of time response to questions. The response time for questions will be based on the moderator's discretion, my discretion. 1 minute responses, 30 seconds responses, and yes and no. 1 minute will be permitted for rebuttals, so you can rebut any question or any candidate's answer. Candidates will be given 2 minutes for a wrap-up, and the order of speakers will be the reverse of the introductions. As moderator, I will have final jurisdictions on all forum matters. So we will begin the candidate introductions. First up, we have Mikkel Spears.
Check, check. Good evening. I'm honoured by the opportunity to serve God and the people of Lakeland by running to be their next MP. I wish to play a part in making the country more glorious and free to the glory of God, for you and for my 4 children. I currently work as a secondary school teacher, but I also have experience in administration and carpentry. Along with my local farmers, I serve on a volunteer fire department. My primary concern is our move away from being a country that celebrates and nurtures life to being a country that offers death under the title of healthcare. Canada kills around 100,000 babies through abortions and over 15,000 adults through MAID per annum. Canada currently has 0 abortion laws, meaning that babies can be legally killed for any and every reason. The Christian Heritage Party is the only federal party that's committed to the defense of innocent human life from conception to natural death. Government overreach in general, and specifically regarding the lawful ownership and use of firearms, is a grave concern. Greater consequences for gun crime should be introduced at the same time as the relaxing of firearm regulations for non-criminals. The cost of maintaining our debt is unsustainable. We would work hard to eliminate the country's huge debt that puts us on the back foot when things like emergencies or tariffs happen. We would also encourage manufacturing in Canada rather than sending our raw materials out of Canada for processing. So, in conclusion, the protection of life, the freedom to own firearms, and our national debt are three of the many issues I look forwards to addressing if you put me in a seat in Ottawa. If you believe these are important issues, vote for Michael Spears with the Christian Heritage Party for an unmuzzled, pro-life, pro-family, and pro-freedom voice in Ottawa. Thank you.
All right, next up we'll hear from Des Bissonnette.
Hi, thank you all so much for coming out tonight. My name is Des Bissonnette. I'm a longtime Lloydminster resident, and I am a worker. I've worked in a lot of different places here. This is my second time running, so you may recognize me from the 2021 federal election, or you might recognize me from one of my jobs. Maybe I've sold you a gun, maybe I've handed you a pack of pre-rolls, hey, maybe I've given you some tea. Fact of the matter is, I'm a worker, and I'm here to do a job, and I'm asking you to hire me for that job today. We have a lack of strong working class voices in Parliament, people who care about what people actually need, affordable housing, affordable groceries. We need to have access to a more robust healthcare system where we're paying more doctors and more nurses to go into the communities that need them. I believe in a Canada that has a message of hope. I've been really frustrated lately hearing how politicians want to talk about how Canada is broken, that somehow fundamentally there's something wrong with this country. Well, that's not the fact. We are a great country, we're great people, we're extremely diverse, we are caring and we're compassionate for each other, and we have an opportunity this election to vote for somebody who is going to go to Parliament and talk about working class rights. I want to be that person, and I'm here today to prove to you that I'm a hard worker and that I deserve the job. Thank you so much.
All right, Michael Manchin.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. I am Michael Manchin, representing the People's Party of Canada in the Lakeland constituency for the 45th federal election. I've been living and working my entire adult life in the Lakeland constituency. Married 32 years with 2 grown sons, which I am very proud of. I was a Red Seal tradesman at the age of 21, moved into oil and gas operations, productions, facilities, and regulatory. As well, I was with the Fire and Rescue for 15 years. I've also accomplished a variety of entrepreneurial businesses, creating a solid base of living for my family and I. So I truly admire the spirit of the Lakeland and what it will give us. This is my second federal election, coming in 4th place in Canada's 44th election cycle for the People's Party of Canada. There is plenty of support for the People's Party, but people have been warily voting Conservative to ensure the elimination of the Liberal government control. This is not a concern here, as there's no chance that we vote Liberal in the Lakeland, so vote the party that represents you. The one that is supposed to represent us right here is a no-show. Today, the corruption, crime, and bad policies and waste are so horrific, and the opposition party is sitting on its hands. I will speak for all of us here. Something must be done. And I, with the towering pillars of the People's Party of Canada, have the solid, unwavering platform to change the course of history. As a Canadian, I have a vested interest in keeping my personal property, such as firearms. As a Canadian, I have an interest in keeping my freedom of speech and the ability for my voice to be heard. Why is this difficult? April 1st, CBC was provided an extra $171 million on top of their annual $1.4 billion in government funding, signing off on while Parliament is prorogued to assist in fluffing up the Liberals. With a long list of waste, a total of $42 billion was printed for this election cycle alone.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Just a reminder for viewers to submit questions. Please email all questions to forum@lloydminsterchamber.com. So we will get started. We will give the floor to Michael Manchin for the first question, and this will be 1 minute response. Trade. What is your position on interprovincial trade?
Presently, it's easier to trade to the south than it is to the east. It makes us wonder why we're here. Alberta transferred $90 billion to the federal government in 2024 and received only $45 billion back. So $45 billion went that way, and they will not take our oil. We need to run a pipeline across Canada. I think we're all I mean, that has to happen. We can reduce the price of natural resources in our own country. We do not have to pay full value when we're sitting on the third largest pool of oil on the planet. So why are we even allowing this country to import from foreign entities? We can do this with all of our natural resources and be so competitive it's not even funny. Forestry was hit with tariffs last Trump thing, and there was the price of fence posts went from $1.50 to $5 a post.
Okay, Des?
So interprovincial trade is extremely important. It's something that we need to be really bolstering. Many of you, I know myself included, we are currently involved in the Buy Canada campaign, buying explicitly Canadian goods or buying goods from countries that are currently not in a trade war with us. And I think that that's something that needs to continue to be encouraged. We need to make sure that people are making a living wage so that they're actually able to put money into their local communities and that they're able to purchase those local things. It's really, really important. At the present time, we're living in a moment where things are unaffordable, whether that's housing or I said groceries, other luxury goods or non-luxury goods. We need to have money in order to purchase those things. And in order to strengthen our interprovincial trade, we have to continue to support our workers and make sure that our workers are making enough at their jobs. One job should be enough to support an entire family. Living today, it's just frankly not. And we need to make that change. We need to look at a future where there's hope and that we can actually make working class money go further and support our communities. Thank you.
Mikkel?
Yeah, we need to keep trade in Canada. There are some interprovincial trade barriers that need to be dealt with. We shouldn't be making it hard to work as a country when we are a country. It should be easier to trade within Canada than it is to trade with countries out with. We also need to encourage Canada-made products. Canadian Tire should be Canadian Tire, not Chinese Tire. Try finding Canadian products in there, for example. And we do need to be able to get oil and gas out to the east more easily and more readily and not sending it down through the States.
Okay, this next question, we are going to go first to Des, and then to Miguel, and then to Michael. Okay? You'll have a 1 minute time limit. What specific policies will you implement to address the immigration crisis in Canada, balancing humanitarian needs with economic and security concerns?
Thank you so much for the question. So right now, temporary foreign workers are being exploited, and that's frankly unacceptable. We need to start working towards helping those families and helping those workers so that they are not in a position where they're being exploited for their labor. This is something that's across all forms of labor, but especially in the temporary foreign worker plan. Another thing that we need to do is to end that reliance on temporary foreign workers. Frankly, our job should be here in Canada, and Canadians should be working them. We should be making our own money. And so I would really love to close work permits that exploit those workers and continue to do work consulting with communities, consulting with immigration communities so that we know what's best for those people and what's best for that working class. Thank you.
Okay, Mikkel?
Yes, thank you. Canadians' first responsibility is to the safety and well-being of its citizens. My accent maybe gives me away. I am an immigrant myself. Immigration is a privilege. It's not a right. I'm thankful for that privilege. But there needs to be rules and regulations. It needs to be controlled. It needs to be limited. We're a huge country. We don't have an amazing infrastructure. If we have too many people rolling in too quickly, we're going to get overwhelmed. Canada's a nation made up of immigrants and the descendants of immigrants. And while national borders are the somewhat arbitrary borders of national sovereignty and jurisdiction established over time, they do play an important part and legitimate role in the governance of people around the globe. Thank you.
Michael?
Immigration. It should not be in the hands of the federal government to determine who comes here. We should be developing our natural resources, requiring manpower. It should be in the hands of the employers to bring skilled workers here as determined by what's required. Presently, the federal government, they've imported enough people to, well, and they make these fake jobs, right? So they created 60,000 fake jobs in the federal government, completely unproductive. They threw a bunch in the CRA. We have the population of the city of Red Deer working the CRA. Do we need that, really? But it needs to be in the hands and control of the employers and not in the hands of the federal government. Strictly regulated, perhaps, but this way we'll get the people that we need and not just buy votes.
Thank you. Okay, our next question, we'll start with Mikkel, and we will go for 1 minute response. What is your position on pursuing international trading partners to replace American suppliers and buyers?
If we can produce and refine, process, and sell within our own borders, I think that's a more efficient solution than looking for other foreign countries to fill those gaps. From an environmental point of view, there's less shipping of goods, there's less pollution, there's just less energy involved if we can supply it here in Canada somehow.
Okay, we'll go to Michael.
This is a natural resource question. We have more natural resources than any other country in the entire world. We produce these things. Let's say that Joe landowner has some copper on his land. We as the federal government will encourage them to produce this. They will get loans from the Bank of Canada. I mean, hell, we're printing $11 billion for LGBT stuff in Africa. Like, what are we doing here? That happens to be about as much as Fort McMurray costed for CNRL, and that created an economic boom. We printed $600 billion in the last 10 years, and we're all poorer because of it. So if we just invested in the landowners to produce the natural resources, we would have so much of it, and we could sell it cheaper in Canada, and the royalties would give us all the social programs we need, and we'd all be wealthy.
Okay, Des?
I'd just like to address, you can't even get transgender surgeries paid for in Canada by Canadian healthcare. We're not paying for anybody in Africa. But continuing on with that, my position on international trade to replace American goods, I think it's important for us to not only invest in international trade with other countries that are friendly to us, but again, really important to build up our infrastructure and our local community. It's important for us to continue to invest in sustainable food systems so that we're growing our own food in Canada and what we can source from Canada that we do. Improving our interprovincial trade will also be really great to bolster that. The biggest thing is that we're in an unprecedented trade war. I think it's really important for us to look at our options and to be able to continue to provide the things that Canadians are needing and that we're able to import and export appropriately. And we have to have a good trading partner that is going to meet with us in good spirit. And frankly, the American government is not in that position at this moment. So I'm very much in favor of continuing to do international trade as well as to continue to bolster our local initiatives, our sustainable food. Thank you.
Not quite in line with the center of this question, but I did just want to note that doing a bit of research since our debate on Monday, on transhealthcare.org, I found March 22, the title, Canada finally has nationwide funding for gender-affirming surgeries.
Okay. This is going to be a quick answer. You just have to answer either changed, scrapped, or kept as is. Okay? And we'll start with you, Des. Should the proposed emissions cap be changed, scrapped, or kept as is?
Changed.
Mikkel?
Sorry, proposed emissions cap.
Yeah, be changed, scrapped, or kept as is.
Scrapped.
Okay. Michael?
Absolutely eliminated CO2 is plant food.
Thank you. This is a question, Des, this is specifically for you. Given how crucial oil, and you'll have 1 minute. Given how crucial oil and gas are to both our economy and thousands of Canadians' jobs, how do you justify the NDP's approach to phasing it out?
So I think we need to acknowledge that there is a climate crisis and that the world is not able to sustain the amount of fossil fuels that we're currently using. But the great news is that we actually have the option to move to renewables, and we have the opportunity now, as at this time in point in time, we have the opportunity to make sure our oil field workers are transitioned over justly, that we are making sure that they are the ones who are getting the jobs in the renewable energy, that they are getting compensated properly during their training time so that they're not left through the cracks. I know so many people in Lloydminster whose entire livelihoods are based off oil and gas, including my own at one point. My partner was a part of the oil and gas industry for a long time too. It is a backbreaking job. It is a horrible job at times. You know, I was really upset many times. I wouldn't get to see my partner because our work schedules were completely opposite. And I think that we need to have a conversation about workers' rights for people in the oil field so that they're continued to be compensated properly, that they have new job opportunities. And I think the NDP is right in continuing to push for newer initiatives, to push for renewables. We have the opportunity to be a global leader. Thank you.
Okay, our next question, we're going to go to Michael, and you'll have 1 minute. We'll go Michael, Mikkel, and Des. Out of every tax dollar that goes out, we only get 6 cents back. How will your party address taxation?
You know, my accountant says the GST is the most honest tax that there is, because if you have lots of money, you spend lots, and if you have little, you spend little. We are taxed on absolutely everything. The simplest way to do taxes is develop our natural resources, make lots of income for the country, and use our royalties to pay for all of our social programs. All of our taxes, as far as I can tell, is an absolute waste. I'm not sure how we generated $600 billion in debt while having an extra carbon tax. I mean, where did all this money go? If it wasn't a wealth transfer, then we could actually be using it for proper things like maybe nuclear energy, building dams in the North Saskatchewan, which would make a nice lake, by the way. We could do a lot of good things. We're not doing it.
Mikkel?
CHP would replace the income tax system with a fair tax and national sales tax based on what you, not on what you earn, but on what you spend. This gives you the power to decide how much tax you want to pay. If you buy lots of luxury items, you pay more tax. If you control your spending and keep your expenses low, you'll benefit greatly from the fair tax and will be able to keep much more of your paycheck to save, invest, or spend on things you need. Have a look at your paycheck and think of what you could do with the money now being skimmed by Revenue Canada. This system would also mean that the low earners get to take part in supporting Canada financially, and the people who work extra hard and make extra money don't get penalized extra.
Okay, Des?
So the NDP, we want to have the tax burden put on the more wealthy. Let's be honest, nobody in the world needs $1 billion. What are you going to do with $1 billion? We have more than enough resources to share around, and the middle class and working people should not be the ones who are taking the tax dollars. We shouldn't be putting all of our taxes into services when there are people who are making way more money who are not contributing. We want to have our services, our public services being invested in, and the way to do that is to have a wealth tax and take that burden off of the working class. We also want to make a GST cut on diapers, on home heating, and other essential goods, because you shouldn't have to pay GST on those items. If they are essential to your life and your well-being, you should not have to pay government sales tax on them. And we believe that in the NDP. We want to put more money in your pockets. We want to take money out of the billionaires' pockets so that there is a more fair, equal share of the burden of tax. Thank you.
Okay, this next question, we will start with Mikkel, and it will be 1 minute answer. What is your party's specific plan to deal with 100% tariffs on Canadian canola, and how soon after the election will this be rectified?
I don't know.
Okay, Des?
So the NDP is dedicated to continuing to stand up against bullies like Donald Trump. We're going to continue to push for retaliatory tariffs, and we're also going to be advocating for the canola board. We will advocate for those workers. We will do consultations with them so that we can best represent them, and we will fight in Parliament for their rights.
Michael?
Tariffs, canola. I'd say don't fight them, lead. Lead by example. The more natural resources and more productive we are on all regards, we would create international competition for everything that we have, and people are going to want all of those things. Canola is being sold lotsly into China right now, and that is a bit of a problem. That is kind of, we need more diversification there. And it's going to take about 3 years, as I talked to the farmers about this, to transition away from canola into different crops. And so they will do it, but there's a 3-year lag there, and we will have a glut of it. So eat deep fried.
Okay, next up, we will start with Des, and you will have 1 minute to respond. Then we will go to Michael, and then we'll go to Mikkel. Federal debt is at record levels, and rising interest payments could lead to higher taxes or reduced services. What is your concrete plan to reduce the national debt while avoiding further tax burden on business?
We're taxing those billionaires. Again, they do not need that money. There is no reason. You've won capitalism. Congratulations. You have more money than any of us could ever possibly fathom. Meanwhile, I'm making $30,000 a year, and most of that goes towards tax. It's frankly unacceptable. The NDP is going to continue to tax people who deserve to be taxed, who are making more money, and most importantly, are making that money by exploiting our work and underpaying workers. We need to tackle that. We need to talk about the fact that we are in a deficit because we have workers who are putting our time and our effort into taxes. All of our money is going towards this, and it's still a deficit. Our public services are being gutted, and we're still in a deficit. We need to address these things and take them seriously because we need to start putting people first. Thank you.
Michael?
Natural resource revenue and royalties is how we eliminate the rest of the taxes. Did you guys know that Alaska doesn't have any taxes at all? They just have royalty revenue. In Texas, they only have a 5% GST and no income taxes because there's just royalty revenue. We can just hit royalty revenue if we weren't controlled on our natural resource production, and I'm not just talking oil here. If we can just royalties on absolutely everything, we could eliminate just about all the taxes in Canada, and that would be fair for everybody. And I would push for, she wants to do the communist tax to billionaires. I want to make more billionaires, and there's no reason that we can't all be wealthier in Canada.
Mikkel?
The CHP would pay down debt and introduce mandatory balanced budgets, no deficit spending. Do the math on that. It's not going to be pleasant, but we are leaving a ticking time bomb for the next generation. We have to start dealing with it. The Liberals and the Socialist New Democrats have long been known as spendthrift money managers, and the current government is no exception, obviously. What is not widely known is that the last Conservative government, which was in power for 9 years, also added significantly to national debt, close to $150 billion. No matter what measure you use, that is not balancing the budget.
Okay, next question. We will start with Michael, and we will go to Mikkel and then Des. Okay. With Canada's aging population, attracting and retaining talent is critical. How will your government ensure Canada remains an attractive destination for skilled workers and entrepreneurs?
Again, we need to produce more natural resources in this country. Then we could lower the prices on them in this country. Then we bring in the immigration that we need and skilled workers. We take that out of the hands of the federal government because they're doing a piss poor job. And then the skilled workers will be here. We'll generate lots more money so that the seniors will do better. Which they need to, because right now, the amount that I have some rental property and I rent to seniors, and it's absolutely horrific. We're leaving them in poverty. We are actually paying the homeless people there's 236 homeless people on the streets of Lloydminster right now. We pay them better than the senior citizens in this city. Don't feed the bear. We're feeding the wrong bear. We're doing this wrong. Let's support our seniors.
Hey, Mikkel?
Canada has resources and great potential, and entrepreneurs have an eye for such things. I don't think we need to be selling the country to people. The people who are astute enough to see that, they will come, they will take the opportunities to make great business here.
Des?
So in order to make Canada an attractive destination for workers, some of the things that we need to do is including recognizing their merits across seas. We need to make sure that we're able to accept people in and let them do the jobs that they're trained to do. Another thing that will be very attractive for workers is having robust communities that are invested in, making sure that communities not only have, again, a living wage. I want to really, really hone that in, a living wage where you're able to pay for the things that you need to pay for and then pay into your community further. If we are doing this, we have a Canada that's already set up on the idea of taking care of people. People will come. To make it an attractive destination for workers, again, we get rid of the temporary foreign worker program. We make it so that when people are immigrating, that they have a faster track to immigration and that they're able to be part of our country sooner. And another thing that I think is really, really important in order to make jobs and to really just increase the working class is we need to focus on reproduction, and we need to be taking care of the children that are being born in Canada. We have a low birth rate. The reason for that is because it's so expensive to have children. We need to have daycare accessible. We need to have good education for those kids.
Okay, we're going to start with Mikkel, and you'll have 1 minute, and then we'll go to Michael and then Des. Small and medium-sized businesses are struggling with rising costs due to inflation, supply chain disruptions, and interest rates. What measures will you take to stabilize costs and support business sustainability?
I think we're back to having to deal with our debt. That's inflation and debt are related. It would be nice to say we would hand out money to support those small businesses. We're in debt. We don't have money to be handing out. I'm afraid I don't have an answer that is... I don't have a silver bullet for that. Sorry.
Michael?
End corporate welfare. We're giving money to big corporations, but not the ones that are hiring the majority of the people. The carbon tax has depleted our wealth by 40% in this country when you count everything that it's stripped from us. I mean, there's so many things that we can do. All we need to do is end the corruption, right? Our debt was $600 billion 10 years ago. Now it's $1.2 trillion. They literally just printed $41 billion just for this election cycle, just so that we can't get any views anywhere. It's corrupt. We eliminate the corruption, we fix the problems.
Des?
So when we tax big businesses appropriately, it will help small businesses. It will stabilize those costs and sustainability. We can also invest in making sure that we're producing things more locally so that local businesses and small businesses are able to do that source locally. But also as your representative, one of the things that I would really like to do is to tour out throughout Lakeland and go to all of the different small businesses and consult with those owners and hear what they need to do, what they need from their representative, because really that's what we're fundamentally here to do, is to be the representative for your area, to be your voice in Parliament. And so it's important for us to sit back and actually listen instead of just telling people what they need. Sometimes that's really hard when you're just choking out party lines, but it's important especially for small businesses, because who's going to understand a business better than the person who's running it and the people who work there and the people who patronize it? So that's what I would do.
Okay, we're going to start, Des, we're going to start with you, and then we'll go to Michael and then Mikkel. So we are going to go... how will you ensure hydrogen and critical mineral resources can be developed within provinces without federal interference?
So I think federal interference is important because we do need to have regulations in order to protect our environment. I do think one of the conversations that we need to have around mineral resources is making sure that farmers have their mineral rights. When a farmer has to sell his farm, he doesn't have his mineral rights, and a lot of times people are being exploited, having oil wells being abandoned on their farms, which affects those animals that they have or the crops, the soil quality. So I would really want to have those conversations again, investing in talking to farmers, hearing from them, talking about mineral rights. And I do think that we should keep those regulations because, again, it is very important to protect our environment. We only have one planet. We have to keep it safe any way that we can.
Okay, Michael?
You said hydrogen, right? Okay, so hydrogen is the most abundant substance in the universe. If we're talking natural gas, that's 1C4H's. But if we're talking specifically hydrogen, I would build a bunch of nuclear energy is the cleanest energy in Canada. It generates electricity at a certain speed, but we only use it like this. While it's generating that extra electricity, we split the water into hydrogen and oxygen. In this case, oxygen's a waste product. Hydrogen goes straight back into our pipeline system to heat our home. Hydrogen, we're eliminating the C, so those of you that think that carbon is pure evil, that's heating our homes for free with clean energy. Making electricity cheaper is the right way to do this, and then we'd get off the fossil fuels easier because it's cheaper.
Miko?
Can I have the question again, please?
Yep. How will you ensure hydrogen and critical mineral resources can be developed within provinces without federal interference?
I agree that they should be developed without federal interference. I think there should be more autonomy between the provinces, somewhat more similar to the states. And we'll see what the future holds for that. As far as ways to concretely make that happen, I don't know. More legislation, more bold premiers standing up for their rights in their provinces and challenging the federal governments when they are stepping out of their lane.
Okay, we will start with Michael, and you have 1 minute to answer. Lloydminster and the prairies as a whole are reliant on a few industries, and namely oil. If or when oil becomes less lucrative, how do you plan to guide and diversify our economy?
Well, considering we have the most natural resources on planet Earth, all we need to do is just develop those easily. And the way to do that is we send some Canadian geologists throughout Canada. We find these natural resources. We already know where they all are for the most part. We can even find them with satellites for a large part. We produce all of these minerals and natural resources, and we're diversified. Now we sell these things to ourselves, not at the global prices, but at a better price because it's Canada, and we can do that internally quite easily. When we generate the cheaper commodities, suddenly it's going to create an economic boom because we can build cars as cheap as the Chinese and still have good paying jobs. We just need to diversify what we're doing and stop being restricted by the present federal government.
Des?
So for Lloydminster and for rural areas specifically that rely on oil and gas, I think that committing to a just transition to renewables is going to be an extremely important part of protecting the rural economy. When we invest in just transition jobs, that's talking about giving people who are working in the oil field now the opportunity to get schooling and to get directly hired into the renewables. We're giving them the education that they need and then directly hiring those people for those jobs and guaranteeing that they are being given those jobs at a fair compensation that's similar to what they got. That's something that we need to do. We need to be responsible to ourselves and to the planet, and it's so important for us to be the leader in this renewable energy. Now we can do that whether it's solar, whether it's wind power, whether it's nuclear or hydropower. We have the manpower. We have dedicated oil field workers who are willing to do these jobs, and we can give them that education. The other thing that I would really love to do is, again, going out to those communities and having conversations with people, because who knows better what kind of jobs are needed or where the gaps are than the people who live there.
Miko?
I think we're already quite diverse. We have our trades and we have our agriculture, and also because of people just living here, we have our healthcare, we have education. There's lots of jobs in all those places. Beyond that, I think continuing to find new ways to harvest oil. We've done well with that. In the oil sands, we can continue to find new ways, or at least try to, and maybe lead in that, and look into nuclear as well. That's an energy source right there.
Okay, and reminder for viewers that are tuning in to submit your questions, please email to forum@lloydminsterchamber.com to submit your questions. Okay, Mikkel, we're going to stay with you, and we'll have 1 minute to respond. What's your opinion on universal basic income, and how would you pay for it?
I wouldn't pay for it because at least with my shallow understanding of it, I don't think I agree with it. People should be paid in relation to how they work. There shouldn't be a universal income. The people who work really hard should make more money. The people who have not learnt a good work ethic, they could, should, and probably would in Alberta, where people work hard, learn a good work ethic. If there isn't too much support for the people who aren't working hard, then they learn to work hard, or they start to get hungry. I don't mean that in a barbaric way. Of course, some people just can't work. We should support them, but the people who are choosing not to work, we need mechanisms to encourage them to work.
Okay, we'll go to Michael.
Yeah, the CBI. That's what a horrible idea. And the reason I say that is the sign says "Don't feed the bear," for a reason, right? Once you do that, they have to destroy it. Again, I'm going to revert back to 10 years ago. There was barely any homeless in Lloydminster whatsoever. Now we have 236 people on the streets in Lloydminster alone, because we are giving them. If you stay at the Ladies' Shelter of Red Deer, you get an automatic $900. Then you get the GST rebates, carbon tax rebates. If you get you're being fed, clothed, looked after, everything that you need. Now you get free dental to boot, right? We're doing this already, and it's just creating more homelessness. We're not helping people. And what do they do with that money? Because it's free money, drugs, right? And now we got a serious problem on the streets of Lloydminster, and every single town in Canada is doing this. So what are we doing? Well, free injection sites, right? Like what we are doing here is an absolute disaster.
Des?
So what's more of a pro-life opinion than UBI? The idea that being alive makes you deserving of having a home over your head, having food in your belly, having access to the things you need. A universal basic income covers all of our basic needs. And then from there, we're actually able to work for more things. I've actually talked to a homeless person before. I've actually talked to many of them. And I'll tell you right now, not only do many of them not have the access to do their taxes to actually get these benefits that you're saying that they're going to get, but a lot of them just do not have the means or the support to get these things. If you don't have an address, you don't get these things. If you don't have the ability to do your taxes, you don't get these things. And frankly, they're not bears. They're human beings. They're real people who have stories, who have lives, and who have fallen into a place and gotten left in the cracks. And it's unacceptable that we allow this to happen. Those are human beings. We should be taking care of them. And a universal basic income would do that. How do we pay for it? We tax billionaires who are exploiting our work and making it harder for us to have money in our pockets. It's really that easy. And I know it sounds like it's not, but we need to have hope and we need to fight for better.
Okay, we're going to start with Michael. And you'll have 1 minute to respond. What is your position on equalization formula? Should it be changed, and if so, how?
So 2024, Alberta sent $90 billion to the federal government. We received $45 billion back. That money is for health care and whatnot. The federal government, as it is presently, determines how that money is going to be spent. So anyway, we're in deficit of $45 billion just in Alberta alone. Saskatchewan's also getting their asses kicked over there. It makes you question why we're even here, especially when they won't take our oil, right? This country is not working together the way that it's supposed to. Confederation is a failure, and it's just making us poorer. We all want to work hard, we really do, but there's no encouragement to do this. So it's not working.
Des?
So there are aspects of equalization I would say I would agree with. I don't think it's a bad thing for us to want to take care of each other, and that is across all of Canada. I think that we should actually be very proud in the idea that we may actually want to care for one another, even if we're not seeing each other face to face. That's something that I have to learn a lot more about, but I'm also willing to do that. And if I was your representative, I would be willing to listen to the opinions of the people in my riding and make a decision based off of what they say.
Miko?
I agree in part with Des. We are a country, we're not individual countries, so we do have some responsibility to the other provinces. But as individual provinces and as a country, we need to be living within our means, not putting ourselves in more and more debt. So I don't know if I can add much to that. Individually, the provinces need to work on that. They shouldn't be running at a deficit and then living off of the excess that the other provinces have. And as a whole country, we should have a surplus. We have the capability to have a surplus.
Okay, we will start with Des. Businesses have expressed concerns over the federal government's lack of meaningful consultation on policies that impact them. How will you ensure the business community has a stronger voice in federal decision making?
So like I said, one of the things that I would like to do as your representative is go to all the different communities within Lakeland and speak with business owners. I think it's really important for your representative to be transparent and open to having conversations, even if they might feel a little uncomfortable. This is a job, and I'm willing to do that job, and that's part of the work, is going out to those communities, speaking with people and hearing from their lived experiences. So what I would do is I would continue to support business owners in that way, making sure that they're getting highlighted, that I'm taking the time to be part of their community, and experiencing a cycle of Wakotuan with them, doing right by them, because we are in community together.
Miguel?
MPs need to get more in touch with businesses, yes, and there maybe even should be something mandated where you can't just live in the political world for decades. You need to take a break from time to time, go work on a farm, go work a trade, go work in the oil patch, and get reconnected with the people. I think we see too many politicians that are just so far out of touch with who we are and our needs and our issues. I think that would be part of the solution, or have a limit on how long you're in politics. Go get a job back in the private sector after a certain time, so that you don't get to that point where you're just too out of touch.
Michael?
Businesses communicating with the government. Well, there's some things the government should pretty much keep their hands off. And, you know, businesses have probably more say than they should, especially the large corporations. They are, you know, CNC Lavalin, everybody heard about that stuff, right? We know how this stuff works. We can't have too much control here. The businesses that are making money, I remember 10 years ago, plus, before we voted incorrectly in this country, and in Alberta as well at the same time, and it was a double whammy, and we went almost communist and destroyed everything that we had. And but companies were making enough money that they were funding hockey arenas, town halls, and all these little villages, and the government had to kick in very little. We just need to stay out of the pockets of the businesses and let them do their thing, and they will support the communities.
Okay, we're going to stay with you, Michael. What's your opinion on capital gains tax? Many seniors rely on the sale of the property as revenue to retire on. You have 1 minute.
This ties into housing. Landowners, if they sell a quarter section of land right now for $1 million, they have to pay capital gains taxes. It's 50% or 50%. They made it 66%, so it's 33%. You're going to have to pay $333,000 on your $1 million property, especially if you're going to try to hand it down to your family. If you got 3/4 of sections of land, the kid's got to sell one to pay the capital gains. Now, if somebody wants to develop that land, they have to pay the capital gains, right? So it increases the price of that land. The developer buys it, makes a profit after developing it. He pays the capital gains. Guy builds a house on it. You know, he spends blah, 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 capital gains, right? Now, of course, the value went up on that. You can appreciate how the price of housing is more than double what it should be because of capital gains on land. Thanks.
Miko?
I agree. I think we should get rid of that. The fair tax that I talked about earlier, where you're taxed on what you're buying rather than what you're earning or what you're making through owning something that's increasing in value. That's going to be a fairer and simpler system. And what I didn't mention earlier is because it's simpler, you need less CRA. You don't need to, what did Michael say, populate Red Deer with all the CRA workers. So that saves us a bunch of money and gets us closer to balancing the budget.
Des?
I think we're all in agreements of this. I think the capital gains tax is unfair, especially when it comes to farmers and farmers trying to pass their land down. We want to make sure that people who are trying to pass their land down are able to do that without it being an obstacle. I do think that tax, again, has its point. It's important to have, but capital gains tax is just very unnecessary for people who are just trying to sell their homes.
Okay, Miko, we're going to go to you. You'll have 1 minute to respond. What's your opinion on separation referendum or 51st state?
Either or both. I think this should definitely be looked into. By God's grace, with the Christian Heritage Party, I have the freedom to voice my opinion on that. And if I get a seat in Ottawa, I have the freedom to vote either way, because our party doesn't hold that over us. To be honest, I don't know enough about the details of the legalities of either of those moves and how possible they both are from a legal point of view. From a practical point of view, I think Alberta would do very well independently as a 51st state, probably as well. Considering how much money we put in through equalization payments, we could deal with our debt really quickly and be a prosperous nation.
Des?
I think it's a traitorous conversation to even consider wanting to be the 51st state. We are Canada, we're a sovereign nation, and on top of that, we are also on Indigenous land. I'm a proud member of the Métis Nation. Thank you. I'm an Indigenous woman. This land, my ancestors, we fought for our right to exist. We fought for our right against Canada, and we decided to join Confederation as the Métis Nation, and I'm really proud of that history that we have. I'm a strong and proud Canadian. I'm going to continue to be a Canadian till the day I damn well die, and I'm going to die on Canadian soil because this is where I belong. This is my land. This is where my people were born. This is where my culture comes from. And I know many different people across Canada feel that same way. That's why the Buy Canadian movement is so strong right now. We have a sense of unity because we are together. We are community members together. So I think that conversation is really frustrating to hear because we're not Americans. We're Canadians, and we're going to damn well stay Canadians.
Michael?
Yeah, you know, the joining the states, I mean, God knows what's going to happen over there. We probably shouldn't be doing that. What we should do is take a page out of Quebec's book, force a referendum. After they did that, I remember Chrétien was in power at that time. There was a vote to separate in Quebec. It came out 49 to 51%. Quebec stayed in Confederation, and they got everything they could ever wish for, so they never do it again. And so call their bluff. I shouldn't say that out loud, but, you know, we don't want to separate. We really don't. But call their bluff so we can get a better deal in Confederation. As far as the native things go, I just wanted to bring that up. All of that land is federally owned. All reserves are federally owned. And they don't really have any home ownership or anything, and they should. They should own their own homes and on their own land so they can have equality like everybody else.
Rebuttal?
Yes, I hope this is within the rules. This is a question, so I can do some learning here. Could the Métis Nation not continue to exist and simply transcend those borders, whether they were Alberta-Canada borders or like Alberta as part of the state / Canada borders?
We're going to let a 20-second rebuttal.
Yeah, so I actually love that question. We don't actually recognize the American-Canadian border because we existed before it and we existed around it. Many historical Métis lived in Montana as well as many other states, and my heritage actually comes from North Dakota.
Okay. Des, we're going to stay with you for this question.
Okay, hot seat.
Canada has fallen behind in economic growth compared to peer nations. What specific policies will you implement to improve Canada's tax competitiveness, reduce red tape, and drive investment? 1 minute.
So I don't think we've necessarily fallen behind a whole lot. What has happened, though, is we've seen a shift of the wealth going to the extremely wealthy and away from the working class. So what I think is really important is to continue to focus on supporting the working class. Again, doing things like those tax initiatives against the extremely wealthy and extremely big businesses so that we can focus more on small businesses and small communities. We need to be focused on doing better for people, because really that's what determines whether or not you have a good life quality, is if you have your needs met, you have the things that you need to do. And so in order for us to continue to be a good place to live, because I do believe that Canada is a good place to live. I don't personally believe this narrative that keeps getting pushed by the Conservatives that Canada is fundamentally broken. I don't think that for a damn second. I think we are a great country, but we have the ability to be better, and we can do that by focusing on people-driven ideas and having representatives who are focused on doing that, who want to represent the working class and who want to do right by you, who want to bring your voice to Parliament, be confident about talking to the things that you need help with. Thank you.
We'll go to Mikkel.
Can I have the question again, please?
Canada has fallen behind in economic growth compared to peer nations. What specific policies will you implement to improve Canada's tax competitiveness, reduce red tape, and drive investment?
Red tape, I'm not sure. Regarding the dollars, though, less government spending abroad. We need to put our own house in order before we're meddling with other people's affairs, especially when that's along the lines of offering so-called family planning and such like abroad to other nations. We also need to stop spending $100 million in killing babies every year. And there needs to be tighter rules and regulations regarding government, expenses, the expenses that our politicians are clocking up on expensive food and expensive travel, expensive holidays. There needs to be more transparency regarding where our dollars are going. That will reduce the spending, meaning we'll have more money. We'll be getting further ahead as a country.
Michael?
Global competitiveness, it is really easy to do by producing all of our natural resources, using the royalties to generate income. Eliminating corruption is top of that list, and allowing landowners to develop the natural resources, creating direct wealth to the fields. Once we produce enough natural resources, the entire world is going to compete for them. They might have to tariff us because we're going to have so damn much of it. And that's fine. Right now, we're 96% of our oil that we produce is south across the border, 4% we use internally. We can do that with the rest of our natural resources as well, and generate enough wealth that we don't have to give a damn about the tariffs. Again, that's 20-25%. 40% was just in carbon tax screwing us over alone.
Okay, thank you. We're going to stay with you, Michael, and you'll have 1 minute. To help with several issues here in Lloydminster due to a provincial border going through it, would you be opposed to relocate the border around the city so we are in one province only? If you are against that relocation, why?
We're doing pretty good here in Lloydminster. There is no GST on the, we do the right things. If we do the right things on both sides of the border, take advantage of all the things that we have, the best of Saskatchewan, the best of Alberta, and put those into Lloydminster, then we're all going to gain, right? We don't split the time zone here, so we're okay there, right? We do have a bit of a problem with where we get our electricity from. It is cheaper in Saskatchewan than it is in Alberta, and the first 3 blocks of Lloydminster has to pay Alberta electricity, which is a little odd and unfair. Like that should shift back to normal. But changing the border, no, I think that the diversity is good, and we work together really well. I think there's no problem here.
Des?
I think there is definitely the need for a collaborative spirit, but I gotta say, I love Lloydminster. I've lived here for 20 years of my life. This is the place that I call home, and I love the uniqueness of having that border. Definitely annoying at times if you move like a block and you have to change all of your information over from one province to the other. It can get very annoying, but there's such a beautiful uniqueness in it, in the history of Lloydminster, and I really think that it's more up to the people of Lloydminster whether or not we want to determine to move that border. I don't think that that that's a conversation that the federal government should even be involved in. I think that that's a consultation for Mayor Albers and the Chamber of Commerce to have those conversations and see what's right for our community, but they know better than I would know. As far as my personal opinion, I love this city and I love its uniqueness. I love the people here. I love that I can say I'm from either Alberta or Saskatchewan and kind of confuse people. It's really unique and it's something really special. I would hate to get rid of it.
Miko?
Well, we'd have to drive even further to have an interprovincial day trip if they moved the border. Well, depending on which side we moved it, that'd be the first question, right? Which way would we move it? Would it all be Saskatchewan or would it all be Alberta? I completely agree. It should go to the people. It wouldn't be too hard or too expensive to ask the people of Lloyd to have a meeting or two and just see what people thought. It's certainly an interesting idea. It's something I've never considered before. But if it works, then why try and fix it? I don't know if there would be any real gains moving the border.
Okay, we're going to start. This is going to be a yes or no question. We'll go Des, Michael, and Miguel. Would you repeal Bill C-69? Yes or no?
Yes.
Michael?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, yes, or yes.
Miko?
Sorry.
Would you repeal
no,
BL?
I know.
Oh.
I heard the question. I'm drawing a blank as to what that is.
No
so
pipelines.
No pipelines. Would I repeal that? Yes, for sure. Sorry, that was just supposed to be just yes. Yes.
Perfect. Okay, we're going to start. Let's start with Des. Businesses continue to face severe skilled labor shortages across multiple industries. How will your government reform immigration, credential recognition, and training policies to better align with workforce needs?
I feel like I've actually appropriately answered this question a couple times, talking about the temporary foreign workers program, rehauling that and making sure that it's not taking advantage of those workers, and then recognizing their credentials. I think that's really what we can do, encouraging immigration to Canada for people and just talking about how great our nation is.
We'll go to Michael.
I'm sorry, can you do that question? It was a little lengthy. I just don't want to miss the point of it.
Businesses continue to face severe skilled labor shortages across multiple industry. How will your government reform immigration, credential recognition, and training policies to better align with workforce needs?
Awesome. So I actually did bring in a couple of Filipinos one time for one of my businesses, and it was really, really interesting how what I learned from that whole process. I found that they were poor because of corruption, and we're going that direction too. We should only allow the businesses to determine the skilled workers we need, and don't let that be in the hands of the federal government to just bring over people nilly-willy to affect the GDP and fake jobs. And so if we allow the employers to bring in the people, the skilled workers, we will have the best skilled workers. You've got them for a 2-year contract. If they don't turn out, you just send their asses home. It's just a plane ride, right? You know, get a couple of fresh ones, and we end up with the best people on planet Earth working for us right here. And after 3 years, they get citizenship, and then we will have the best people.
Miko? I'll take a repeat of that question again. Businesses continue to face severe skilled labor shortages across multiple industries. How will your government reform immigration, credential recognition, and training policies to better align with workforce needs?
I don't think the workforce needs to come from out with Canada. I think we have enough people here. So training, maybe there is a deficit in training. Maybe the issue is more so just people being driven. Although I find in Alberta that people are quite driven, people are hardworking, people are getting her done. So maybe the training model could be modified, could be made more flexible, so you don't have to go to university necessarily for 4 years and clock up a bunch of debt while people are waiting for those employees, but rather more on-the-job training, more like the apprenticeship model, which I think works really well. You earn as you learn. You're not accruing debt for yourself, and you're not getting used to the comfort maybe of being a student. You're continuing to grow that work ethic.
Okay, we're gonna go to Des. You'll have 1 minute to respond. Then we'll go to Mikkel, and then we'll go to Michael. How will you ensure our community's needs and Western Canada's priorities are heard in Ottawa?
So one of the things that's really difficult about being part of Western Canada is that I can attest to you on election night 2021, they had already called a Liberal minority before the results for Lakeland are even in. And it really feels like we don't have a voice. And that's extremely frustrating. And it's part of the reason why we need strong representatives, especially for Lakeland and in Parliament, who are willing to stand up and talk and to be visible and to highlight the things that we need done in this community. I feel so frustrated that we are not in a position where we have that kind of person who's dedicated. Shannon didn't even show up tonight to speak to the good people of Lakeland and ask them for this job. She's working. She's already got her pension. She's in a position where she feels so comfortable and believes that she deserves your vote that she didn't even bother to come here and speak to you today. And the three of us can attest that we're determined to do that work. We want to do that work. We want to be that strong representation. Western Canada has been in a position where we haven't had a voice. I'm here to give you that voice. I really hope that you think that I'm worthy of that because I'm trying.
Okay, Michael? Oh, Steve. Oh, Mikkel. Yeah.
Two minute Michaels. So most people know that our current voting system is the first past the post, but the CHP has long favoured some sort of proportional representation whereby every party would achieve a percentage of seats in Parliament roughly equal to the percentage of votes received. Of course, proportional representation has some problems of its own. There are a number of variations of it, each of them attempting to solve the issue. No system is perfect. But the biggest challenge for Christians is that our Western society as a whole has abandoned the Christian principles that made it great. Freedom of speech, respect for life, respect for the Creator, and for the rule of law. So our federal policy supports some form of proportional representation. Some members also suggest other forms of electoral reform, such as preferential ballot might be a way to go. These would need looked into.
Michael?
Well, realistically, I mean, nobody's voting for any of us. They're voting for the leaders of the party, right? Nobody knows who we are, right? And so we really are, I don't know, I feel like we're voiceless here. It doesn't matter what we say or do. It doesn't matter. We're probably going to vote for the same damn useless government over and over again and keep on going in the same cycle. We're just beating our heads against a wall here. Like, what's the point of this? I like how they do it in the Northwest Territories. They elect people. There's no parties up there. They just elect people, and then those 5 people, it's a big part of the world, but those 5 people get together and they determine the government, period, right? But no parties involved. Little tricky to do, I understand that, for all of Canada, but yeah, we're only voting for the leaders here. Can't be any worse.
Okay. I think we have time for one more question, and then we're going to close. So, what will your party do to bring Canada together? And we're going to start with Mikkel.
Another freedom convoy? That seemed to bring the people together. Beyond that, hockey. We got hockey to keep us together. Maybe some Tim Hortons. What do we need to bring us together? Communication. That's probably the answer. I happen to be a married man. I happen to have children. I happen to know that communication is a challenge and misunderstandings happen frequently and easily. Clearer communication. We do also need Eastern Canada listening more and maybe being a bit more appreciative of what we bring to the table. But yes, talking more clearly and listening better could be part of the solution.
Des?
I want to share with you just a kind of an anecdotal thing. When I'm in a room filled with other New Democrats, there is this incredible sense of hope that we all bring to each other. And I think that that is something that builds community better than anything else in this world, is having hope for a better future. As Canadians, we can hope together and we can fight together for the working class so that we're all taken care of. That will bring us together. If we're putting time and effort, investments into community services, we're putting time and effort into building up smaller communities, focusing on rural communities, and helping the workers of those communities, that will bring us together. We already have this sense of unity that's come from the Buy Canadian movement. We can continue to work on that by investing and making it so that we can have more local production. The more that we invest in Canada and in Canadians as individuals, the more we're going to feel that sense of camaraderie. My friends, hope is so much stronger than fear. And we live in a time where there is a lot of fear, and we have to hold on to hope, because we need to build a future better for our children.
Michael?
You know, I don't recall there being much divisibility in Canada over 10 years ago. That was generated recently by divide and conquer is the way of our present federal government. And you can go to just about anywhere. I was in Vancouver one time on a city bus. I felt like a minority, and there was one person chirping about, you know, I can't remember what it was, but I had to correct him. I said, we're all here for the same purpose in this country. We really are. You know, when we talk about us sending money to the east and they're not taking our oil and whatnot, the only reason that burns in our hearts is because they're taking that money and pissing up against the wall and not doing anything useful with it. If they were building nice, wonderful things, you know, in Ottawa with our money so that we could have a high-speed rail and we could go over there as tourists in our own country and go, hey, look what we generated together as a group of people. Or we have Molson Canadian commercials. Okay. We are Canadian!
Candidates will now be given 2 minutes for a wrap-up, and the order of speakers will be the reverse of the introductions. So Michael will be staying with you. 2 minutes. Wrap it up.
In closing, the fear that the Liberals regain control and therefore people plan to vote strategically rather than sensibly will not fix anything, as with the GST that the Conservatives swore that they would abolish, yet they only lowered it from 7% to 5%. I expect much the same with the carbon tax. The carbon tax has decreased our standard of living by 40% and stripped us all of a better future. The waste and corruption from this money is what forced this election, and nobody has pointed this out but us. And that's probably why our representatives are not here today. The Green Slush Fund closed down government in October, and then it went all the way to Christmas, and they knew they couldn't reconvene without the corruption being spoken about. So they prorogued government, switched the leaders, and we're going to find out about this corruption, hopefully, when government reconvenes. But unfortunately, we're going to have a brand new government, and it doesn't matter if the Liberals are in power or not. Unless it's requested that that dirt is dug up, everything in the past is pushed behind us, and we won't see any of this corruption. So don't worry about splitting the vote in the Lakeland constituency, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to vote probably with the Conservatives on most things. But we need to keep them in check, and the best way to keep these guys in check is to chuck in me more votes, and I will be as aggressive as I seem up here in the House of Commons. So vote People's Party of Canada, and I thank you all for coming out tonight. I hope I gave you plenty to think about, and I have plenty more ideas that we just didn't have time for today. Have a great night.
Des?
I want to start off by thanking everyone who's come out tonight here in person, and those of you who are watching online as well. Every aspect of our lives is political, from the water we drink to the food that we eat, the clothing that we wear. Every single aspect is political, but it can be very hard to engage in politics. I'm asking you today, just like my friends here are, we're asking you for a job, for the job of being your representative. I'm a hard worker, and I'm really dedicated to this riding. I'm here again. I chose to run a second time because I cared about the people of Lakeland when I've had conversations with you at your doors, because I saw that there was a need for a strong working class representation. And maybe I'm not that perfect person all the time, but damn well am I determined to fight for that. I'm determined to fight to give you a voice. I'm determined to listen to you even if we have differing opinions, because that's what makes Canada wonderful, is our diversity and our equity with each other and including each other in everything that we have. I want to assure you as your representative that I'll protect people with disabilities in our community, making sure that they have enough money to support themselves, because that's a huge gap. I want to continue to invest in our education, in affordable housing, in our healthcare, and in the things that matter most to Canadians, because we deserve it. And I hope that we have a better future. I'm here to make it better. I'm here to be part of the people that fight for that. And I hope that you'll join me and you'll join New Democrats this election by voting me as your representative. Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it.
All right, Miko?
Thank you for exercising your freedom to come out this evening or to watch online. I note that freedom of speech and of conscience, as well as bodily autonomy, are other important freedoms, but are under attack by our government. Next to life itself, freedom of speech is the second most important human right. Without it, we cannot defend any other right, including the right to life, the right to work, and the right to own property. When citizens are forced to violate their own consciences, lost my place. Our nation becomes conscienceless. A government that ignores the consciences of its citizens and does not allow free speech is not promoting democracy. We desperately need truly conservative leaders in Ottawa who are firmly rooted in the values that made Canada strong and free. Most people today would be surprised to discover that it was principles taken from the pages of the Christian Bible that made Canada free and prosperous. These principles were built into our founding documents and permeated the hearts and minds of a high percentage of our forefathers. This Christian heritage has benefited all Canadians. Vote for a reinstating of these strong values in our country. Vote Michael Spears and the Christian Heritage Party. Thank you. Have a safe drive home and a wonderful Easter. Peace of Christ.
All right. I would like to say some thank yous first to the audience, in person and online, for participating and asking your questions. Secondly, to the candidates for their commitment and courage in stepping up and making sure those constituents have a choice on election day. Maz Entertainment for doing our live stream, the Chamber partners and media partners for helping to get the live stream out to the public, and finally to Lloydminster Exhibition for providing this great meeting space. So be sure to get out on April 28th and vote. It is your right, it is your privilege, and it's your responsibility to our country. I now declare the official candidates forum closed.